Along the cobblestone streets of New York City, a small and somewhat pink-faced boy wandered down Broadway, dwarfed by the towering wall of storefronts at his side. Still sporting a full head of baby curls, the child seemed barely old enough to be out in the city alone, and he looked frail, as if he recently might have been sick. Horse-drawn carriages rattled by, dropping off elegant women in hoop-skirted dresses and big hats. Gathering their billowing raiments up with their fingers, they floated in and out of stores, showcasing velvet gloves, mink stoles, and fancy sweets. This was Ladies' Mile, that stretch of Broadway between Union and Madison Squares where New York's fancy boutiques competed for space and well-heeled customers. Jostled by the swarms of fashionable shoppers, the boy continued along Broadway, glancing through the storefront windows, until he passed a familiar grocery, where something caught his eye. Amid the usual cartons of fruits and vegetables was an object strangely out of place, splayed out on a slab of wood. It was the dull mass of a seal, dead less than a day. Placed on display to attract paying customers, its corpulent body drew the child's attention. Sliding his hand along the seal's glossy, smooth pelt and peering deeply into its clouding eyes, he was overwhelmed with interest. Its eyes were so big, and they were fringed with delicate eyelashes just like his own. Curious onlookers stood back, only a brave few leaning in for a closer look, but the little boy remained transfixed. It was probably a harbor seal, still fairly common in New York Harbor. So transfixed was the boy by this exotic creature that he raced home for a notebook and ruler, returning moments later to measure the carcass and jot down a few notes on its color and appearance. The 8-year-old boy then wrote a detailed natural history of seals, based entirely on that one dead animal. Theodore Roosevelt's life changed forever in that encounter, for it marked, as he later noted, the first day of his career as a naturalist. Recalling the event in his autobiography decades later, Roosevelt wrote that the seal filled him with every possible feeling of romance and adventure. It was so unlike anything he had ever seen before. Touching that seal, he would have felt the stiffness of its long, graceful whiskers, and gently lifting up its lips, he would have seen the gleaming white teeth. The ears were just tiny holes, barely noticeable in its dense fur. Squeezing the front flippers, he would have felt that they were just like greatly enlarged hands, the individual finger bones completely encased in the flesh of the flipper, with tiny claws extending from the tip. Feeling the seal's body with his own hands, he could appreciate all the similarities to his own basic anatomy. But he wanted to get closer, to take the animal home, perhaps to dissect or stuff it. He had read about how naturalists kept animal specimens to study them. And now he had a chance to practice naturalism himself.